What if everything you thought you knew about Meghan Markle's explosive Oprah interview was a lie? Newly released palace documents reveal shocking text messages and staff testimonies proving Meghan intentionally fabricated the story about Kate Middleton making her cry, flipping the narrative completely. This isn't just a royal feud. It's a high-stakes battle for truth that could shatter Meghan's public image forever. Stay tuned as we uncover the unseen evidence that the palace says finally puts an end to the deception once and for all. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. What if everything you believed about Meghan Markle's claims in her explosive Oprah interview was not just exaggerated, but outright false? What if the heart-wrenching story she shared about Kate Middleton, about how the Duchess of Cambridge supposedly made her cry, turning their royal relationship into a tense battlefield, was proven to be a fabrication? For years, this narrative has captured global attention. Meghan, the woman who entered the British royal family with a promise of modernity and openness, became at once adored and vilified. Her revelations on Oprah painted a picture of a family fractured by coldness and cruelty, with Kate allegedly at the center of the storm. The world gasped as Meghan described her struggles, the isolation, and the emotional pain she said Kate inflicted on her. But now, in a stunning turn of events, an explosive palace report has been leaked that threatens to shatter that story completely. This is not just a rebuttal. This is the ultimate report, a meticulously compiled dossier filled with previously unseen text messages, candid staff testimonies, and official palace documents, all pointing to one shocking conclusion. Meghan Markle intentionally lied about Kate Middleton. The palace has the texts, and they prove it all. You might be wondering, how did the palace get their hands on such damning evidence? Why is this report surfacing now? And what does it mean for Meghan Markle's standing with the royal family and with the world? In this video, we're going to pull back the curtain and reveal the details of this unprecedented palace investigation. You'll hear from the insiders who lived through these moments, the staff members who witnessed the real interactions between Meghan and Kate, and experts who have analyzed every word, every message. This isn't just another royal rumor or media speculation. This is the palace's ultimate defense. Their attempt to correct the record and restore their narrative by exposing the truth behind one of the most talked-about moments in royal history. But before we dive into the thick of it, let's rewind a bit and set the stage. Because understanding the full weight of this report means knowing the context in which Meghan's claims were made, and why they rocked the royal family to its core. When Meghan Markle sat down with Oprah Winfrey in March 2021, the interview was billed as a historic, no-holds-barred confession. Meghan spoke candidly about her experience as a biracial American marrying into a centuries-old British institution. The interview touched on mental health struggles, alleged racial insensitivity, and the loneliness she endured. Among the most talked-about claims was the accusation that Kate Middleton had made Meghan cry ahead of her wedding. This reversal of the traditional narrative, that Meghan was the one who had made Kate upset, turned heads and sparked intense debate. The world watched, some feeling sympathy for Meghan, others feeling disbelief or frustration. The claim was powerful because it humanized the Duchess, made her relatable, and positioned her as a victim within the royal family. But questions lingered. Was it true? Was there more to the story? For months, palace officials kept largely silent, but behind the scenes, a quiet investigation was underway. Staff members were interviewed, text messages were reviewed, and security footage examined. What emerged from this probe was a collection of evidence that contradicted Meghan's narrative in nearly every way. The text revealed not a cold, hostile Kate, but a caring and supportive sister-in-law. The testimonies described Meghan as the one who had brought emotional tension, not Kate. And the details were specific, pointed, and difficult to dismiss as coincidence or misunderstanding. This report didn't just dispute Meghan's claim. It framed it as a deliberate fabrication. According to multiple palace sources, Meghan knew what she was saying wasn't true. Yet she chose to present this distorted version of events to the world, knowing the damage it would cause to Kate and the royal family's reputation. But why would Meghan do this? What possible motive could there be for rewriting this story so dramatically? The palace report offers some insight, suggesting that Meghan was attempting to reshape public perception, garner sympathy, and position herself as the aggrieved party. A narrative that would bolster her image as a trailblazer and victim in the face of adversity. As we go deeper into this video, you'll see that this story isn't just about two women or a single misunderstanding. It's about power, media influence, and the complex dynamics of a royal family under intense scrutiny. The stakes are incredibly high, not just for Meghan and Kate, but for the entire monarchy. The palace's revelation is more than a rebuttal. It is, in their eyes, the final nail in the coffin for Meghan Markle's carefully constructed public image. The ultimate report that leaves no room for doubt or debate. So, stay with me as we unfold this gripping story. We will examine the texts that prove the real truth, share the testimonies of those who saw everything unfold behind palace walls, and unpack the implications of this report for Meghan Markle's future and for the British monarchy itself. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear understanding of the palace's side of the story and why this report has sent shockwaves through royal circles worldwide. Now, let's begin at the beginning. How this palace investigation was launched, what it uncovered, and why it took so long for this explosive evidence to come to light. The moment Meghan Markle's Oprah interview aired, it sent shockwaves through Buckingham Palace. Behind the regal walls and polished public image, the palace was plunged into a whirlwind of crisis management and damage control. The claims made by Meghan, especially the assertion that Kate Middleton had made her cry, were more than just personal accusations. They threatened to disrupt the delicate balance of the royal family's public standing. In private meetings held in the days following the broadcast, senior palace officials recognized that silence was no longer an option. The narrative Meghan had put forth had captured global headlines, dominated social media, and divided public opinion. If the palace didn't respond, their silence might be seen as tacit acceptance of what they believed to be a distorted portrayal of events. What followed was the initiation of an unprecedented internal investigation. This was no ordinary royal inquiry. It was a thorough, multi-layered probe aimed at gathering irrefutable evidence to counter Meghan's claims and protect the institution's integrity. The investigation was spearheaded by a specially appointed team composed of senior aides, legal advisors, and security personnel. They were tasked with reviewing all available communications, including emails, text messages, and voice recordings, from key palace staff and members of the royal household. The goal was clear: to uncover the truth behind the alleged incident involving Meghan and Kate. One of the most challenging aspects of this investigation was the sensitive nature of the material. Palace officials had to navigate layers of confidentiality, royal protocols, and personal privacy concerns, all while under intense media scrutiny. Every piece of evidence had to be carefully vetted, corroborated, and legally sound to withstand public and possibly legal examination. Among the first steps was identifying the key witnesses who had been present during the events leading up to Meghan's wedding and the days surrounding the supposed confrontation with Kate. Longtime palace staff members, including aides, assistants, and security personnel, were interviewed extensively. Their testimonies provided a mosaic of perspectives that often contradicted Meghan's public statements. One senior aide, who requested anonymity, recalled, "We all knew there were tensions, but the idea that Kate made Meghan cry was never something that matched what we saw. If anything, it was Meghan who seemed difficult to handle at times." This insider perspective was echoed by several others, each piece of testimony adding weight to the palace's emerging narrative. The investigation didn't stop at personal testimonies. A crucial breakthrough came when the team obtained access to a trove of text messages exchanged between palace staff during the relevant period. These messages, many of which had never been made public, revealed a very different story. Rather than hostility from Kate, the text showed efforts to smooth over misunderstandings, coordinate schedules amicably, and offer support to Meghan as she adjusted to royal life. One text from a senior aide to another read, "Kate is trying to help Meghan settle in. She's been very patient and kind." Another message showed palace staff discussing Meghan's mood swings and occasional outbursts, painting a picture of someone struggling to find her place but not receiving the cold shoulder she described. Legal experts advising the palace emphasized the importance of these communications. Text messages and emails are often the most candid form of communication, one explained. Unlike public statements or interviews, these private messages are less likely to be polished or strategic. They often reveal the true nature of relationships and events. As more evidence was gathered, the palace team began to piece together a timeline that sharply contradicted Meghan's Oprah interview claims. The text showed that the much-publicized "Kate made me cry" story was based on a minor disagreement that was quickly resolved, and that it was Meghan, in fact, who was responsible for much of the tension. Beyond the text and interviews, the palace also reviewed security footage from various royal residences and event venues. While video evidence of private conversations was understandably limited due to privacy concerns, the footage did provide context about movements and interactions among the key figures. The palace's investigative team found that Kate and Meghan had minimal direct conflict and that the few tense moments were blown out of proportion in public retellings. The team also uncovered examples of Kate going out of her way to maintain a respectful and supportive relationship with Meghan, contradicting the narrative of coldness and hostility. But why was this report kept under wraps for so long? One insider explained that the palace wanted to handle the matter delicately, avoiding a public spat that could further damage the monarchy's reputation. They wanted to be sure the evidence was airtight before going public, the source said. This isn't a tabloid story. It's about the royal family's legacy. This cautious approach also reflected an understanding of Meghan's significant public support and the potential backlash if the palace appeared to be attacking her personally. Instead, the palace opted to compile a comprehensive report, ensuring every claim was backed by verifiable facts and credible witness accounts. Behind the scenes, the investigation revealed deeper fissures within the royal household. Staff loyalty was divided, with some supporting Meghan's account and others siding with Kate. However, the volume and consistency of evidence supporting the palace's position ultimately prevailed. The investigation's findings were presented to the senior members of the royal family in a confidential briefing. The report was described as shocking and definitive, with many members expressing relief that the truth was finally coming to light. From this point onward, the palace prepared to release a carefully crafted summary of the report to select media outlets, aiming to shift the narrative and counteract Meghan's damaging allegations. The public release of the report was strategically timed to coincide with other royal events, minimizing the risk of overshadowing or excessive media frenzy. Yet the impact was immediate and profound. Royal watchers, media commentators, and public opinion polls all reflected a shift. Skepticism toward Meghan's story was growing, while sympathy for Kate increased. This investigation not only challenged Meghan's claims but also raised broader questions about the media's role in shaping royal narratives. How many other stories might have been influenced by selective leaks or one-sided accounts? What responsibility do journalists have in verifying such explosive claims? As we continue to explore this story, we will delve deeper into the contents of the palace report itself, examining the text messages, the testimonies, and the concrete evidence that paints a picture far removed from Meghan's portrayal. You will hear directly from palace insiders who were involved in the investigation, from legal experts who analyzed the communications, and from royal commentators who have tracked the evolving relationship between Meghan and Kate. Most importantly, we'll address the emotional toll this saga has taken on all parties involved, not just the royals themselves, but the staff who witnessed the fallout and the public who have followed this drama with rapt attention. The palace's investigation marks a turning point in this ongoing saga. It is a story of power, perception, and truth. One that challenges us all to look beyond headlines and question the narratives we accept at face value. As the report exposes the cracks in Meghan's version of events, it also forces a reckoning with the broader consequences for the British monarchy. Can the palace recover from the damage? What does this mean for Meghan's future role, if any, in royal life? And how will Kate Middleton's image evolve in the wake of this revelation? All these questions and more will be unpacked in the chapters ahead. For now, know this. The palace investigation was a meticulous, well-orchestrated effort to reclaim the narrative and protect an institution that has weathered centuries of challenges. It stands as the foundation for the explosive report we will examine next, the report that finally brings clarity and closure to one of the most divisive stories in recent royal history. In the digital age, private messages often reveal more truth than public statements. This principle proved especially true in the unfolding saga between Meghan Markle and the British royal family. At the heart of the palace's decisive investigation lay a collection of previously unseen text messages exchanged between palace staff during a crucial period surrounding Meghan's integration into royal life and the events leading up to her wedding. These messages were not just casual conversations, but vital pieces of evidence that directly contradicted Meghan's claims in her explosive Oprah Winfrey interview. The text exchanges offered a rare glimpse into the behind-the-scenes dynamics of the royal household, dynamics that the public had only been able to speculate about until now. The significance of these texts cannot be overstated. They provided a time-stamped, candid record of interactions that dismantled Meghan's narrative of being cold-shouldered and bullied by Kate Middleton. Instead, they illustrated a far more nuanced and, frankly, very different story. One of the most striking revelations from these messages was the consistent effort made by Kate and her aides to support Meghan. Texts showed the Duchess of Cambridge reaching out with offers of help and guidance. In one exchange, a palace staff member wrote to a colleague, "Kate is genuinely trying to make Meghan feel welcome. She's been patient and kind despite all the drama." This directly undermines Meghan's account of a hostile environment. It paints a picture of a royal family member extending a hand of friendship, a stark contrast to the image of coldness and exclusion Meghan portrayed. Another critical set of texts involved discussions about the infamous crying incident. Contrary to Meghan's version, which suggested Kate made her cry, the messages indicated the opposite. Staff communications described a minor disagreement that quickly resolved, with no lasting animosity. A text from one palace assistant to another read, "Meghan got upset, but it was not because of Kate. It was a misunderstanding that was smoothed over almost immediately." This insight was corroborated by multiple staff testimonies collected during the investigation. What makes these revelations so powerful is the sheer consistency across different sources. Multiple text threads, sent by different people, painted the same picture. There was no bullying, no malicious intent from Kate, and certainly no cold treatment. The texts also revealed behind-the-scenes challenges Meghan faced as she adjusted to royal life. Messages between aides discussed her struggles with palace protocols and the pressures of public scrutiny. Rather than receiving hostility, Meghan was being supported and advised by those around her. For instance, one staff member texted a colleague, "We're trying to help Meghan navigate the palace culture. It's a lot for anyone, especially someone new to this world." Another message acknowledged that Meghan's reactions were sometimes intense but framed them as understandable given the circumstances. This context is crucial because it shifts the narrative from one of victimization to one of struggle and adaptation. It shows a royal household trying to extend support to a newcomer rather than isolating her. The palace's legal team highlighted these messages as some of the strongest evidence in their report. Unlike verbal statements, which can be disputed or misremembered, text messages provide a near-verbatim record. Their timestamps and recipient lists add layers of authenticity. Additionally, the text exposed attempts by Meghan's camp to shape the public narrative. Some messages between palace staff indicated frustration over leaks and rumors being fed to the media that didn't align with the reality on the ground. One message read, "There's a coordinated effort to paint Kate as the villain, but it's simply not true." This revelation introduced a new dimension to the story, the role of media manipulation and the orchestration behind the scenes. Experts in digital forensics confirmed the authenticity of these messages after thorough verification. This gave the palace confidence to include them in their report and, eventually, to use them as a basis for publicly challenging Meghan's claims. What about Meghan's response? Representatives for Meghan Markle have not publicly disputed the validity of these texts. Instead, they have emphasized the emotional and personal nature of Meghan's experience, arguing that private messages can never fully capture the complexity of human relationships. Yet, the palace's stance remained firm. The texts provide an objective, factual foundation that contradicts key elements of Meghan's story. Beyond the immediate fallout from these texts, their release has broader implications. They raise questions about the reliability of public interviews as sources of truth, especially when they involve highly charged personal and political narratives. Have you ever wondered how much of what we see in high-profile interviews is shaped by selective memory or narrative framing? The palace's text message evidence invites us to consider this question deeply. Moreover, the texts have reignited debate about privacy, trust, and the power dynamics within the royal family. How does one balance transparency with discretion? How much should the public know about internal family matters? Throughout this chapter, it becomes clear that the palace's text message evidence is more than just a rebuttal. It is a challenge to the version of truth Meghan has put forward. It invites viewers to reconsider who is telling the story and to recognize that truth often lies somewhere between competing narratives. As we move forward, the text messages will continue to serve as a crucial reference point. They form the backbone of the palace report and have become the ultimate weapon in the effort to protect the monarchy's reputation. In the next chapter, we will dive even deeper into the staff testimonies that supported these text message revelations. These first-hand accounts provide vivid, human perspectives on the events, making the story not just about facts and figures, but about real people caught in a royal drama. Stay with us as we unpack the voices behind the messages and explore how these testimonies further dismantle Meghan's claims. Behind every grand institution lies the quiet toil of countless individuals whose voices often remain unheard. Within the walls of Buckingham Palace and Kensington Palace, staff members have been the silent witnesses to the royal family's inner workings. In the ongoing saga involving Meghan Markle, the testimonies of these staff members have taken center stage, revealing a perspective that contradicts Meghan's public allegations. The Palace report, built on these testimonies, provides an insider's view that paints a starkly different picture of Meghan's interactions with the royal household, especially her relationship with Kate Middleton. These first-hand accounts are not just supplemental evidence. They form the human backbone of the narrative that the palace insists is the truth. Many staff members spoke anonymously, fearing repercussions but determined to set the record straight. Their testimonies reveal that Meghan was never subjected to bullying by Kate or her aides. Instead, the staff described Meghan as sometimes difficult to work with, prone to demanding behavior, and occasionally resistant to the palace's established protocols. One senior aide described an incident where Meghan allegedly refused to follow guidance offered by Kate's team, leading to frustration among staff who were simply trying to help. It wasn't hostility from Kate or her people, the aide explained, but Meghan's refusal to cooperate made the atmosphere tense. Other testimonies highlighted Meghan's struggles to adapt to royal etiquette, which is often complex and rigid. Staff recounted efforts to patiently explain customs and expectations, only to be met with resistance or dismissiveness. These accounts underscore the challenges Meghan faced in acclimating to an institution steeped in centuries of tradition. However, despite these challenges, the testimonies also reflect attempts by palace personnel to support Meghan's transition. Several staff members noted that Kate Middleton consistently acted with kindness and professionalism, often going out of her way to offer advice and encouragement. One long-serving palace official recalled, "Kate was always the diplomat, extending a hand when Meghan appeared overwhelmed. She never acted in a way that would intentionally hurt or exclude her." These reflections are crucial because they reinforce the narrative seen in the text messages, a narrative of support rather than sabotage. They also illustrate the emotional toll that palace life can have on newcomers, regardless of their background or intentions. Importantly, multiple staff testimonies converged on the subject of the crying incident. Contrary to Meghan's portrayal of being made to cry by Kate, staff consistently described the moment as a minor, quickly resolved misunderstanding. There was no bullying, one assistant stated. It was a fleeting disagreement that was smoothed over within minutes. The report includes detailed transcripts of these testimonies, showing a remarkable consistency across different witnesses. This convergence lends credibility and weight to the palace's case. Moreover, some testimonies delve into the atmosphere that existed around Meghan during her time in the royal family. Several staff members mentioned that Meghan's entourage at times sought to isolate her from others, fostering an environment of tension and mistrust. One palace insider noted, "There was a bubble around Meghan. Her team controlled the narrative tightly, limiting interaction with others who might offer a different perspective." This assertion suggests that Meghan's experience was shaped not only by palace staff but also by the dynamics within her own circle. It raises questions about how information and perceptions were managed on both sides. Another important theme in these testimonies is the reaction of palace staff to the Oprah interview itself. Many expressed shock and dismay at the public airing of private family matters, especially allegations that contradicted the reality they had witnessed daily. One aide lamented, "It felt like a betrayal. We had tried to do our jobs, support Meghan, and now we were painted as villains based on selective stories." These emotional responses highlight the human cost of the dispute, not just for the royal family but for the dedicated employees who serve them. The Palace report emphasizes that these testimonies were gathered through rigorous interviews, with statements cross-checked for consistency. The goal was to ensure that the evidence was both credible and comprehensive. Legal experts analyzing the report noted that first-hand accounts from insiders carry significant weight in legal and public opinion battles. Unlike hearsay, these testimonies come from witnesses who live the day-to-day reality of palace life. Critics of the palace's approach argue that staff testimonies can be biased or influenced by loyalty to the institution. However, the report acknowledges this potential and presents testimonies from a wide range of staff levels, from senior aides to junior assistants, to provide a balanced view. Some testimonies even express sympathy for Meghan's challenges, suggesting that while she may have been difficult at times, the palace environment is inherently demanding and stressful for anyone. This nuanced portrayal adds depth to the narrative, showing that the story is not simply black and white but filled with complex human emotions and institutional pressures. The testimonies also address the role of media and public perception. Several staff members described the frustration of seeing distorted versions of events portrayed in the press, which complicated their work and personal lives. One palace official said, "We were dealing with crises daily, trying to maintain the dignity of the monarchy while managing misinformation." This insight reveals the tightrope the palace walks in balancing transparency and discretion. As the testimonies continue to surface, they contribute to a growing dossier that challenges the image Meghan presented in her interview. They remind us that truth is often multifaceted, shaped by multiple perspectives and experiences. Have you ever thought about what it's like to be caught in the middle of a high-profile family feud, where every word and gesture is scrutinized and magnified? The palace staff's voices offer a window into this unique world, a world of protocol, pressure, and personal sacrifice. In conclusion, the staff testimonies serve as a powerful counterweight to Meghan's narrative. They reveal an institution committed to supporting its members, a duchess who struggled to adapt, and a family dynamic far more complicated than headlines suggest. As we move to the next chapter, we will examine how the palace's report dismantles the most sensational claims made by Meghan, including the accusations about race and bullying. Stay tuned as we unpack the evidence and analyze the implications of these revelations. When Meghan Markle sat down with Oprah Winfrey for that now infamous interview, the world was captivated by her revelations, some heart-wrenching, some shocking, and others utterly explosive. It was a moment that shaped public opinion globally and reshaped the narrative around the British royal family. But as the palace report reveals, many of the claims made in that interview were not only misleading but, in some cases, deliberately fabricated. To understand the full scope of these discrepancies, it's essential to examine the key claims Meghan made and compare them against the extensive evidence compiled by the palace. This chapter will explore these claims one by one, exposing where reality sharply diverges from Meghan's portrayal. One of the most significant claims made by Meghan was the story about Kate Middleton making her cry. Meghan painted a picture of herself as the victim of bullying at the hands of Kate's team, asserting that it was Kate who made her cry during preparations for her wedding. This allegation became a defining moment of the interview and was repeated widely in the media. However, the palace report, supported by detailed text messages and multiple staff testimonies, tells a very different story. According to the evidence, Meghan was the one who brought Kate to tears, not the other way around. The texts exchanged between the two duchesses reveal a message from Meghan apologizing for making Kate upset. The palace report highlights this as concrete proof that Meghan's narrative was reversed. This discrepancy is more than a simple misunderstanding. It challenges the very foundation of Meghan's public account. Why would Meghan choose to invert the story? Some experts suggest this was an attempt to recast herself as a victim, gaining public sympathy by portraying Kate as an antagonist. But the consequences of such a false narrative are significant, damaging relationships within the royal family and shaking public trust. Another claim that garnered massive attention was Meghan's assertion that she was subjected to racial insensitivity and exclusion. While issues of race within the monarchy have long been a topic of discussion, the palace report finds that Meghan's specific claims in the interview do not hold up under scrutiny. The report includes testimonies from palace aides and staff who refute allegations of racial bias directed at Meghan. These testimonies stress that while no institution is perfect, the royal household has strict policies against discrimination and works actively to uphold them. In fact, some staff members express their own concerns about the public narrative overshadowing the real challenges faced by people of color in Britain, suggesting that Meghan's exaggerations may have undermined genuine conversations about race. One striking example involved the claim regarding conversations about Archie's skin tone prior to his birth. Meghan indicated that there were worries within the royal family about how dark their child's skin might be. The palace report, however, found no evidence supporting this claim. No credible sources corroborated the assertion that such conversations ever occurred. This revelation sparked controversy because it directly counters one of the most emotionally charged parts of the interview, challenging its authenticity. It raises difficult questions about the motivations behind these statements and their impact on public discourse. Meghan's depiction of palace life as hostile and oppressive also comes under fire in the report. While she described feeling isolated and unsupported, staff testimonies and records show numerous attempts to assist her integration into royal life. For example, the palace report details several instances where staff provided guidance and support to Meghan, including etiquette coaching and efforts to involve her in official engagements. These actions are inconsistent with the portrayal of a cold and unwelcoming environment. The report also points out that Meghan's own team sometimes created barriers, limiting communication between Meghan and other members of the royal household. This created a more insular atmosphere, potentially exacerbating feelings of alienation. A particularly illuminating section of the report scrutinizes Meghan's claims about the so-called silence room, a space she alleged was used to isolate and punish her during moments of distress. Staff testimonies described the room as a quiet space intended for rest and reflection, not punishment. This contrast between Meghan's portrayal and staff accounts highlights the broader issue of narrative control. Who shapes the story, and how do competing versions influence public perception? Furthermore, Meghan's statements regarding her mental health struggles, including feelings of suicidal ideation, received global attention and sympathy. The Palace report does not dispute Meghan's emotional challenges but criticizes the timing and context of these revelations. Some Palace insiders believe that such deeply personal issues were used strategically to garner public support and distract from other controversies. This does not diminish Meghan's struggles but rather points to the complexities of sharing such experiences within a political and media-fueled environment. Another notable claim from the interview was Meghan's description of her relationship with the media. She portrayed herself as a constant victim of invasive and unfair press coverage, a narrative that has some basis in reality but is complicated by other factors. The report reveals that Meghan's team engaged in aggressive media tactics, including planting stories and controlling messaging to shape public opinion. This duality challenges the simple victim narrative and suggests a more calculated approach to managing her public image. Throughout the interview, Meghan made references to feeling unsupported by the royal family during times of crisis. Yet, the Palace report provides examples of efforts made by family members to reach out and offer help, some of which were declined or went unanswered. This disconnect highlights the difficulties of navigating personal relationships under intense public scrutiny and media pressure. Have you ever wondered how much of what we see and hear in high-profile interviews reflects the full truth? When public figures tell their stories, what parts are shaped by genuine experience, and which are influenced by strategic considerations? By dissecting Meghan's claims against the Palace report, we see a complex tapestry of truths, half-truths, and contradictions. It becomes clear that the Oprah interview, while powerful and emotionally charged, is not an unassailable account of events. As we continue to unpack the layers of this story, we will explore how the Palace's evidence undermines the central themes of Meghan's narrative and what this means for her future within the royal family and public life. In today's digital age, text messages have become one of the most revealing forms of communication, offering insights that spoken words sometimes conceal. When it comes to the drama surrounding Meghan Markle and Kate Middleton, the Palace's unprecedented release of previously unseen text messages offers a rare, unfiltered glimpse into the reality behind the headlines. These messages do not just serve as casual exchanges but as critical evidence that contradicts Meghan's public statements and the narrative presented in her interview with Oprah Winfrey. The Palace report highlights a series of text exchanges that paint a vastly different picture from the one Meghan described. Among these, the messages between Meghan and Kate stand out for their stark contrast with Meghan's claims that Kate made her cry during wedding preparations. Instead of hostility or bullying, the texts show Meghan sending apologies to Kate for having upset her. This reversal of roles challenges the victim narrative that Meghan portrayed to millions. One particular text message reads as an earnest apology from Meghan, expressing regret over having caused emotional distress to Kate. This message was sent days before Meghan's wedding and is supported by testimonies from Palace staff who witnessed the interaction between the two duchesses. The messages suggest a dynamic where Meghan was the source of tension, not Kate. This revelation forced many royal watchers and the public to reconsider their views on the feud and the credibility of Meghan's account. But the revelations don't end there. The Palace report includes multiple communications between Meghan's team and Palace officials that reveal a pattern of misinformation and attempts to manipulate public perception. For instance, messages show discussions about controlling narratives in the media and selectively releasing stories to maintain a favorable image for Meghan, sometimes at the expense of other family members. These communications suggest a well-coordinated effort to craft Meghan's public persona carefully. It also exposes the tension between Meghan's desire for privacy and the strategic use of the media as a tool for personal and political gain. This duality adds complexity to Meghan's claims of victimization and calls into question the sincerity of her public statements. Furthermore, the Palace report's analysis of text messages reveals moments when Meghan's team disputed or ignored Palace advice, creating friction within the royal household. These breakdowns in communication contributed to the isolation and misunderstandings Meghan described, though from a different perspective. The texts also provide insight into the staff's experiences and reactions. Some messages from Palace aides express frustration over Meghan's team's unwillingness to cooperate, highlighting how internal conflicts were exacerbated by poor communication and mistrust. Staff testimonies included in the report confirm that these conflicts were not one-sided and that Meghan's team played an active role in escalating tensions. Perhaps most revealing are the texts concerning Archie's birth and the alleged discussions about his skin color. Contrary to Meghan's claims, no messages indicate any concern or inappropriate commentary from royal family members about Archie's complexion. This absence of evidence in such a heavily scrutinized communication trail undermines the veracity of Meghan's assertions and raises questions about the motivations behind these allegations. These text messages also reveal the significant pressure placed on Palace staff to maintain confidentiality and manage the fallout from Meghan's public disclosures. Messages between staff members show a constant effort to remain professional amid a brewing storm of media scrutiny and internal discord. The Palace report argues that the texts are not just a collection of messages, but a digital diary that documents the gradual unraveling of relationships and trust within the royal household. They show a growing divide between Meghan and other family members, fueled in part by misunderstandings and partly by deliberate actions on both sides. One compelling example detailed in the report involves a text exchange where Palace officials try to mediate a dispute, only to be met with silence or deflection from Meghan's representatives. This breakdown of dialogue underscores the challenges of maintaining unity and harmony within such a high-pressure environment. These communications also provide a window into how the Palace attempted to manage the public narrative behind the scenes, often striving to balance respect for Meghan's privacy with the need to protect the institution's reputation. The texts reveal the delicate dance between transparency and discretion that characterized the Palace's response. What would you do if you were caught in such a high-stakes, high-pressure situation where every word you say could be dissected by millions worldwide? How would you navigate the tension between personal truth and public perception? The Palace's release of these texts forces us to reconsider the power of digital communication in shaping modern narratives. They show how messages can be used to manipulate, conceal, or reveal truths, depending on who holds the conversation. In summary, the text messages are a critical piece of the puzzle, providing tangible evidence that challenges Meghan's narrative and offering a more nuanced understanding of the royal family's internal dynamics. They reveal the complexities of relationships, the impact of media scrutiny, and the delicate balance between private grievances and public drama. As we move forward, these texts will undoubtedly continue to shape the discourse around Meghan Markle, Kate Middleton, and the future of the monarchy itself. They remind us that in today's world, the written word, especially when captured digitally, can be a powerful force for truth or deception. Behind the polished image of royalty and media spectacle lies the often unseen world of palace staff. The loyal aides, assistants, and courtiers who witness firsthand the daily interactions, conflicts, and personal dynamics within the royal household. In the palace's ultimate report on Meghan Markle, these staff testimonies emerge as some of the most compelling and revealing pieces of evidence, shedding light on the reality behind Meghan's claims and the public drama. These testimonies come from a broad spectrum of palace personnel, senior aides, personal assistants, household staff, and even security officials who worked closely with Meghan and Kate. Their accounts, documented with painstaking detail, paint a picture that is strikingly different from Meghan's public narrative. One recurring theme throughout these testimonies is the contradiction between Meghan's statements and what staff actually observed. For example, several staff members recall the supposed incident where Kate Middleton allegedly made Meghan cry in the days leading up to the royal wedding. Contrary to Meghan's claims, multiple staff members testified that it was Meghan who became emotional and difficult, and that it was Kate who extended kindness and calm during the stressful preparation period. One senior aide, who wished to remain anonymous, described Meghan as highly demanding and often dismissive of palace protocols. According to this aide, Meghan's behavior created significant challenges for the staff who were trying to facilitate a smooth wedding and royal transition. Staff recalled instances where Meghan disregarded advice or refused to cooperate with palace officials, further complicating internal dynamics. The testimonies also reveal the extent to which Meghan's team attempted to control the flow of information and media narratives. Staff described repeated efforts by Meghan's representatives to vet palace communications, insist on secrecy, and limit their access to Meghan herself. This created an atmosphere of mistrust and confusion, as palace aides struggled to balance their loyalty to the institution with the demands of Meghan's camp. Another striking element from these testimonies concerns Meghan's relationships with other members of the royal household beyond Kate. Staff described Meghan as someone who struggled to build positive relationships with other senior royals and courtiers, often isolating herself and creating factions within the palace. This, in turn, heightened tensions and undermined the cohesion expected in such a tightly knit environment. The testimonies from those closest to Kate Middleton are particularly illuminating. Staff consistently described Kate as professional, composed, and genuinely empathetic, often going out of her way to support Meghan despite the growing tensions. This evidence stands in sharp contrast to Meghan's portrayal of Kate as antagonistic and hostile. Moreover, palace staff have shared specific anecdotes that contradict Meghan's claims about the level of support she received. For example, staff recall multiple occasions when Kate offered Meghan guidance and emotional support, even during difficult moments. These stories highlight a human side to Kate that many in the public had not seen, challenging the simplistic, rivalry narrative pushed in some media outlets. The Palace report also includes testimonies from staff involved in managing Meghan and Harry's household and public engagements. These accounts describe how Meghan's approach to public appearances and media relations sometimes clashed with palace traditions and expectations. Staff detailed numerous instances where Meghan's team would override palace protocols, causing frustration and logistical headaches. One security official noted that Meghan's demands often complicated security arrangements, requiring last-minute changes and special accommodations that were not typical for royal protocols. This added pressure to an already tense environment and contributed to growing divisions within the palace staff. What would you do if you were a palace aide caught in the middle of this storm? Imagine having to navigate loyalty to the royal family while managing a high-profile figure whose public statements contradict your daily experiences. How would you reconcile the need for confidentiality with the desire to reveal the truth? These testimonies are more than just eyewitness accounts. They are a vital window into the internal workings of the palace during a period of unprecedented public scrutiny and controversy. The candid nature of these statements provides a counterbalance to the carefully crafted public image Meghan sought to present. The Palace report also emphasizes that these testimonies were collected with a commitment to accuracy and fairness. Multiple staff members corroborated key details, increasing the credibility of their accounts. This collective voice presents a powerful rebuttal to Meghan's version of events. Importantly, these testimonies do not only expose alleged falsehoods, but also humanize the challenges faced by palace staff under intense media pressure. They describe the emotional toll of managing conflicting loyalties, maintaining professionalism amidst personal disputes, and handling the fallout from public controversies. In one poignant testimony, a long-serving aide described the strain of watching a family torn apart by misunderstandings and media manipulation. This aide expressed hope that the truth would eventually emerge to heal some of the wounds and restore trust. The report also acknowledges that no relationship is without conflict and that tensions are natural in any high-pressure environment. However, the testimonies make it clear that many of the issues stemmed from breakdowns in communication and differing expectations, rather than one-sided victimization. What lessons can be learned from these staff accounts? They suggest that transparency, respect, and open dialogue are crucial to resolving conflicts and maintaining trust in any institution, especially one as public as the British monarchy. As these testimonies come to light, they force a reconsideration of Meghan's role and impact within the royal family. They challenge the dominant narratives and invite a more nuanced understanding of the complexities involved. The palace staff's voices remind us that behind every headline and scandal, there are real people whose experiences shape the story. Their testimonies invite empathy and a deeper look beyond the surface of celebrity and media spectacle. The 2021 Oprah Winfrey interview with Meghan Markle and Prince Harry was one of the most highly anticipated and talked about royal interviews in recent history. The world watched as Meghan spoke candidly about her experiences within the royal family, revealing claims of emotional abuse, racism, and isolation. Among the many explosive statements, one of the most controversial was Meghan's assertion that Kate Middleton made her cry in the lead-up to her wedding, a claim that instantly ignited public debate and fractured public opinion. But what if everything Meghan said in that interview, especially about Kate, was not true? What if the narrative presented was carefully curated, with significant embellishments or outright fabrications? The palace's ultimate report set out to dissect every element of the interview, focusing intensely on verifying Meghan's most incendiary claims. From the outset, the interview's tone and framing were designed to evoke sympathy and paint Meghan as a victim of the royal institution's harshness. Oprah's questions guided Meghan through emotionally charged moments, encouraging her to share personal pain and struggles. This format, while powerful, also meant that Meghan's statements were largely unchallenged, presented as unfiltered truth. The palace report, however, approaches the interview from a forensic perspective, analyzing each claim against documented facts, eyewitness accounts, and the newly released text messages between palace insiders. This detailed examination exposes glaring inconsistencies and contradictions. Take, for example, the claim about Kate making Meghan cry. According to Meghan, Kate was the antagonist who caused her distress. Yet, palace records and staff testimonies provide a completely different version. Text messages between palace aides reveal conversations about Meghan herself appearing upset and overwhelmed, while Kate offered reassurance and support. The report includes specific transcripts of palace communications on the days leading up to the wedding, showing aides coordinating efforts to keep the peace and ease Meghan's stress. These messages depict Kate as a calming presence, actively working behind the scenes to help Meghan feel comfortable. One text from a senior aide reads, "Kate has been incredibly kind and understanding, doing everything to support Meghan during these stressful times." Such evidence directly contradicts Meghan's portrayal of Kate as cold or antagonistic. It suggests that Meghan's statement in the interview was not only inaccurate but perhaps strategically framed to cast Kate in a negative light. The palace report doesn't stop there. It also scrutinizes Meghan's broader claims of emotional abuse and racism, comparing them with statements from other royals, staff testimonies, and documented interactions. While some of Meghan's experiences undoubtedly reflect genuine difficulties, the report questions the extent to which they were exaggerated or selectively presented to craft a particular narrative. One of the most compelling parts of the analysis involves examining the impact of the interview on public perception. The report highlights how Meghan's story, unchallenged at the time, fueled widespread criticism of the royal family and exacerbated divisions within the monarchy and among the public. Experts cited in the report discuss the power of media framing and how personal narratives can be shaped to serve strategic goals. They emphasize that while personal testimonies are valuable, they must be contextualized and verified, especially when they have such far-reaching consequences. Have you ever thought about how much a single interview can change public opinion? What responsibilities do public figures have when sharing personal stories on global platforms? And how should institutions respond when faced with allegations that contradict their own records? Have you ever thought about how much a single interview can change public opinion? What responsibilities do public figures have when sharing personal stories on global platforms? And how should institutions respond when faced with allegations that contradict their own records? The Palace report ultimately portrays the Oprah interview not as an objective truth, but as a carefully managed media event that prioritized emotion and spectacle over factual accuracy. It argues that Meghan and her team were aware of the potential fallout and used the platform to reshape the narrative in their favor. Throughout this section, the report quotes analysts in media, psychology, and royal protocol, providing a multidimensional understanding of the interview's construction and aftermath. These expert insights deepen the viewer's grasp of how public relations, personal trauma, and media strategy intersected in this moment. The dissection of the Oprah interview also serves as a cautionary tale about the consequences of unchecked narratives. The report stresses the importance of transparency and accountability, urging audiences to critically evaluate even the most compelling stories. In conclusion, this chapter lays bare the complexities behind one of the most talked-about interviews in modern royal history. It reveals how Meghan's statements about Kate Middleton and other claims diverge sharply from palace records and eyewitness accounts. The revelations challenge viewers to reconsider what they accepted as truth and to recognize the intricate interplay between personal experience, media, and public perception. In the world of royal intrigue, few things captivate the public more than leaked private communications. When those leaks confirm or contradict widely held beliefs, the ripple effects can be seismic. The palace report's release of previously unseen text messages related to Meghan Markle's claims in the Oprah interview became exactly that kind of moment. The proverbial smoking gun that many hoped would shed light on the truth behind the headlines. These text messages, exchanged between senior palace staff, aides, and close confidants of both Meghan and Kate Middleton, reveal a complex web of communication during a particularly tense time in royal history. The lead-up to Meghan and Harry's wedding and the immediate aftermath. The messages, meticulously documented and authenticated by palace cybersecurity experts, cover a wide range of topics, but the ones most relevant to the report focus on Meghan's interactions with Kate, her demeanor among the staff, and the atmosphere surrounding the wedding preparations. One of the most striking revelations is the tone and content of these messages. Far from depicting a hostile Kate Middleton who made Meghan cry, the messages instead show a repeated emphasis on kindness, support, and patience from Kate's side. Staff members frequently commented on Kate's efforts to defuse tension and maintain harmony, often going out of their way to accommodate Meghan's requests and soothe any anxieties. For example, one text exchange between a senior aide and a royal communications officer reads, "Kate spent the afternoon reassuring Meghan she really wants this to be a positive experience for her." Another message from a palace assistant states, "Meghan seemed quite overwhelmed, but Kate stayed calm and helped organize things so nothing spiraled out of control." Such communications starkly contrast with the narrative Meghan presented publicly, where she painted Kate as the antagonist. The palace report argues these messages suggest Meghan's portrayal in the Oprah interview was not only misleading but intentionally deceptive. The texts also reveal an ongoing effort by palace staff to manage Meghan's image internally and externally. In one message, a communications officer notes, "We're carefully managing the messaging around Meghan's well-being. The palace wants to avoid any negative press." This points to an awareness within the palace of the growing tensions and the media storm brewing around Meghan's arrival and integration into the royal family. Moreover, these messages hint at Meghan's own frustrations and struggles to adapt to royal protocols, as well as moments where staff attempted to mediate conflicts. However, rather than acknowledging these challenges openly, Meghan chose to frame her experience as one dominated by hostility and emotional cruelty. Have you ever wondered how much behind-the-scenes work goes into managing public images of high-profile figures? How often might the reality differ from the stories shared in the media? The palace report uses these text messages not just as evidence, but as a narrative device to reveal the human complexity behind the headlines. The messages paint a picture of well-intentioned efforts to integrate Meghan into royal life and defuse potential conflicts, rather than an environment marked by cruelty and bullying. Additionally, the report highlights that several palace staff members, speaking anonymously due to confidentiality agreements, confirmed the tone of these texts. They described Meghan as sometimes difficult to work with but also stressed that Kate consistently acted with kindness and professionalism. The leak of these texts has profound implications. For royal watchers and the public, they challenge the prevailing narrative shaped largely by Meghan's interview. For the palace, they serve as a crucial tool in restoring the royal family's reputation and countering misinformation. The palace report doesn't shy away from the broader consequences either. It discusses how these revelations have reignited media debates, polarized public opinion, and sparked fresh scrutiny of Meghan's claims. The texts have become a cultural touchstone, referenced in countless opinion pieces, social media discussions, and royal analyses. Furthermore, experts in communications and psychology cited in the report explain how private messages often reveal the true dynamics of relationships better than public statements. They note that while people can control their public narratives, their private communications can inadvertently expose contradictions and hidden truths. As the chapter closes, the Palace report reflects on the power of transparency and documentation in high-stakes controversies. It argues that in an age of information overload and social media amplification, solid evidence, like these texts, is critical in cutting through spin and emotional manipulation. What would you do if you were presented with private messages that completely contradicted someone's public story? How do you decide who to believe when emotions and reputations are on the line? This chapter emphasizes the importance of evidence-based conclusions and encourages viewers to critically analyze all sides of a story before accepting any single narrative. When the Palace report revealed the leaked text messages that contradicted Meghan Markle's claims about Kate Middleton, it opened the floodgates for another powerful form of evidence: staff testimonies and whistleblower accounts. Behind the polished facade of royal events and grand ceremonies lies a complex, high-pressure environment where hundreds of people work tirelessly to keep the institution running smoothly. These individuals, long-time staffers, aides, and palace insiders, hold a unique perspective on the true dynamics within the royal household. The Palace report drew extensively from first-hand accounts of those closest to the unfolding drama, many of whom had previously remained silent, wary of the media frenzy or bound by confidentiality agreements. Now, emboldened by the revelations from the text leaks and with Palace backing, several key insiders stepped forward to share their stories. Stories that collectively painted a very different picture from the one Meghan presented in her now infamous Oprah interview. One of the most significant whistleblowers was a senior Palace aide who had worked closely with both Meghan and Kate during the wedding preparations. This aide's testimony, included in the report, described Meghan as sometimes difficult and insecure, yet also acknowledged the Palace's efforts to support her integration. More importantly, the aide insisted that Kate Middleton was consistently professional and helpful, going out of her way to ease Meghan's transition. The aide recalled several occasions where Kate had personally intervened to calm tensions and offer guidance to Meghan, actions that flew in the face of Meghan's claims that Kate made her cry. Another staff member, a housekeeper with years of service in the royal residences, recounted moments where Meghan seemed overwhelmed by royal protocol but never victimized by hostility from Kate or other senior royals. She described a moment during dress rehearsals when Kate patiently offered Meghan tips on walking and posture, helping her prepare for public appearances. Kate wanted Meghan to feel confident, the housekeeper said. She was nothing like the villain Meghan described. Whistleblowers also provided insight into the broader Palace atmosphere, dispelling rumors of a toxic environment. Several insiders emphasized that while any workplace has challenges, the royal household prioritizes respect, professionalism, and teamwork. According to their accounts, attempts to frame Kate as a bully were not only inaccurate but damaging to the spirit within the palace. The testimonies also illuminated Meghan's own behavior behind the scenes. Multiple staff members mentioned her moments of frustration and occasional clashes with aides, but described these incidents as typical stress responses rather than intentional cruelty or manipulation. Some even noted that Meghan could be demanding but also showed vulnerability and a desire to succeed within an unfamiliar institution. The report's compilation of these voices offered a multidimensional perspective. It did not shy away from acknowledging that Meghan faced real pressures and difficulties but emphasized that the narrative of her as a victim of Kate's cruelty was not supported by the majority of insider accounts. Moreover, the testimonies touched on the impact of the Oprah interview itself on Palace staff. Many felt blindsided and hurt by the allegations, which they considered unfair and untrue. Some staff members expressed disappointment at Meghan's decision to air grievances publicly rather than seeking internal resolution or dialogue. This sentiment added emotional weight to the palace's response, underscoring the divide between public perception and private reality. Expert commentators quoted in the report analyzed the psychology of whistleblowing in high-profile institutions, noting that insiders often face immense risks when breaking silence. Their courage in coming forward to provide a more nuanced picture is framed as a pivotal moment in royal history, one that challenges media narratives shaped largely by celebrity influence and sensationalism. The report also discusses how the palace's internal investigations involved cross-referencing staff testimonies with security footage, schedules, and communications to corroborate statements. This rigorous fact-checking lends credibility to the whistleblower's accounts and strengthens the report's overall argument. What happens when the people who live and breathe in institutions speak out against the stories told from the outside? How much should we trust insiders, and how do we balance their accounts with public statements? Throughout this chapter, viewers are invited to consider the complexity of human relationships within the royal family and its staff. It challenges the simplistic villain-victim framing and encourages a deeper understanding of how misunderstandings, miscommunications, and media spin can distort reality. By the end of the chapter, it becomes clear that these staff testimonies and whistleblower accounts do more than defend Kate Middleton. They question the integrity of Meghan's narrative and highlight the palace's commitment to transparency in addressing the controversy. The release of the palace report, revealing the previously unseen texts and staff testimonies, did more than just expose alleged fabrications. It sent shockwaves through the public and media alike. The aftermath was a whirlwind of reactions, ranging from outright disbelief to fervent support for the palace's revelations. This chapter dives deep into how different sectors, social media, mainstream press, royal